Hi, I'm Jason Bryant from the Short-Time Wrestling Podcast and founder of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned and operated, and those opinions presented and expressed may not reflect others, the sponsors, patrons, or the parent network. Find more shows about the greatest sport in the world at the Mat Talk Podcast Network at mattalkonline.com.
The mind of Pat Popolizio is a wondrous thing. And for you Pack wrestling fans, you'll get to go inside the mind of the Skip each and every episode here on the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Now, here's your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt.
Wolfpac wrestling fans, we're back. A brand new episode of the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Obviously, ACC action going on, so we're ramping up here as we get towards the postseason. And this must be 3 or 4 straight podcasts in a row. Pat, you're on your own podcast. He's the head coach of the Wolfpac, Pat Popolizio.
Brian, you know we're in season if we're going back to back like this. So I'm just glad we got you in the office today, ready to roll.
Actually, not back to back. Took last week off. Yep. I was salty.
You're not the only one.
I think there were fans salty, athletes salty, school salty, but we had a killer podcast last time. Previewed all 10 bouts. We never do that.
That was a good podcast.
You did
a great job.
So fans, go back and listen.
You could just play it again, here in a couple weeks. You could just play that podcast.
I was going to say, don't ruin it. We're going to post that podcast again because we already did all the work for it.
Yep.
But fans, go back, listen. If you want to hear about Virginia Tech Duel, the podcast, it was killer.
There was a lot of good info in there.
All right, so we're going to come back to that. Obviously, Pat, the Virginia Tech Duel didn't happen. Forfeit on the Hokies' part. I know we're not going to get into too many details, but kind of take us through what happened, what your guys' reaction was, how you guys moved on.
Yeah, I mean, it all happened pretty fast. There was a last-minute notification that the duel wasn't happening, and it was kind of all a little bit of a blur. It was like within a 2-hour span with some big decisions going down, and it wasn't something that you could just move from a Friday to a Sunday. It wasn't one that we could do the week before the conference tournament because I don't think that's healthy for either team to compete. It wasn't one on the fly. We could find out when facilities was going to be open and able to do it. So I think after a week of digesting what had happened, we were able to find a time and place to get this dual meet in, which had to happen. It's just healthy for wrestling. It's healthy for both teams. It's going to help each side with the level of competition for RPI. And let's face it, I think now the fans from both sides are going to show up even more that Sunday. And I expect to have a sold out arena come February 20th. So it's going to be an awesome atmosphere, a great duel. And I'm glad it's back on the schedule. I think everyone is, and we know it has to happen. So we're moving forward with it.
I don't know if fans heard that. I got a text while you were talking.
I see you. You're distracted, and I can see you can't multitask. So this must be important.
Yeah, how about this great one? I was supposed to get Ed Scott to do an interview, and I forgot to send him the information, and he's asking for the information.
He's matured a lot, as you can see, on and off the mat.
It's a good call.
Responsibility.
All right, so Ed, thank you. So Virginia Tech canceled. We're going to pull back the curtain here. You got 2 phones. I know a lot of people don't have your second number. I just got it a couple months ago. How many texts and calls did you get that weekend?
It was a lot. It was an unfortunate situation. I think we found the best case scenario for what we are doing for our sport and for the guys. So there was definitely a lot of communication, and our administration stepped up big, worked things out to get the facility on a day that you can draw a big crowd, because that's important for this dual meet, not to just throw it in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. So we had to do what was right for the people and get this rolling. And I think it's the best case scenario right now. Dual meet's on, and people are going to get to watch this high-level wrestling.
We're going to have a lot more information because that duel is about 3 weeks away. But that weekend, Carolina and Virginia Tech in Reynolds, 2 great events. Pretty much we can guarantee it's going to be packed in there. So can't wait for that weekend. But before we get to that weekend, Virginia Tech canceled. Campbell got on the schedule. Sunday, we all took the bus down there. I can't say what's the town's name?
Bowie Creek.
Yeah, it's down there, an hour down south.
You've been here 10 years. You don't know what's going on?
I'm not sure how to say it, so I'm not even going to try. Pronunciations aren't my thing.
Fuquay.
I know we went through Fuquay. All right, so you guys got down to Campbell. How did that come together? Great team result, last minute.
Yeah.
Were you worried about your guys at all going down there on short notice?
Well, first of all, I was thankful the Campbell staff and administration allowed us to go in there and compete. We couldn't afford to have 2 weekends off. One, just not making weight, and then not competing. So they stepped up big for us, and that won't go unnoticed down the road. But yeah, our guys were pumped. I think we were ready. We had a good plan in place. There was a reason why we had a weekend off. There was a reason why that dual meet was scheduled. There's a reason why we worked backwards on our schedule, knowing that duel is so big. We had trained for that dual meet. We knew we had to be ready for it. So guys were expecting to wrestle Friday night, and then we switched the plan on them to Sunday. So you got weight management going on, and then you got morale. Let's face it, you go from wrestling at home probably in a packed arena to going over to Campbell where no fans are allowed and against a really tough team. We had to get ready mentally for that. And I thought our guys did a pretty good job overall preparing and showing up and competing against a really tough, well-coached Campbell team. And I think we got 8 out of the 10 matches. A little bit of a letdown at some of the weights, but that's what happens when you wrestle good guys. You got to be ready across the board. So it was good. It made us better.
I know Campbell was amped up. They were excited for the tweet. Wish we could have got some fans down there. Those fans,
crowd in there.
Yeah, those fans.
That's
are
a good
little
arena
insane.
for wrestling too. They got a nice arena, great facilities over there.
I'm sure they're going to say, "Hey, come down and wrestle us in this arena next year."
Well, let's get them here. The invitation is open for them to come into Reynolds next year, and hopefully we can make it a yearly duel.
All right. 33-6, Wolfpac down Campbell. And then you did finally get into ACC action last weekend. Went over to Duke, got all 10 matches. First ACC shutout since 1996. All 10-year starters in the lineup. Kind of initial impressions of the win over Duke.
Yeah, I thought it was good. First of all, I'm not into trying to shut out any team. I don't know if that's the way things should go. But unfortunately, the match count, we had to wrestle all our 10 starters. And then there's some key matchups who matched up against some of our better guys who I knew, they wanted to see those matches happen. So we had to wrestle all 10 guys, and, we were fortunate enough to win all those. And I think there was 4 weights that, they have some solid guys that gave us a really good match. And, really good wrestling, 49, 74, 97, and heavyweight. All those matches stood out to me. So I think we wrestled pretty well. Some things we can work on, but again, it was nice to be in an arena where we were allowed fans, and I thought our people traveled pretty well. Wolfpac Nation was in the house, a lot of red in that arena, so it was nice to see.
I was going to say, a ton of red. Wolfpac fans really appreciated the short drive over to Duke.
Yep.
You guys haven't been in Reynolds since December 12th.
I know.
It seems like forever. A long time, doesn't it?
The good news, Brian, though, just so, I don't know if you checked your calendar, but we got 3 home duels in the month of February, which is going to be real exciting.
I just pumped that up. Absolutely. 3 times.
Yep.
Who did I invite to come watch us?
Probably
Hulk Hogan. I said, if you need tickets, let me know.
What about Shane?
Yeah. I don't know him. Me and Hulk were buddies.
Oh, okay.
Double H. All right. Speaking Double H, Hayden Hidlay, Matt Finesilver. That was a great matchup.
Yep.
And but people were really looking forward to it. Matt Finesilver's totally different body shape than Hayden.
Yeah.
It's safe to say he's probably about a foot taller than Hayden.
Yep.
How do you, that's the big question about Hayden right now. By the way, that might be a hint of who's on the podcast later. But
talk about Hunter wins.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Hunter wins. I've got to get him on the donuts.
Yes.
Too many people are asking him about donuts.
Yep.
I'm going to see if it's pissing him off yet.
No.
All right. Back to Matt Finesilver. Everybody's kind of coming into the season wondering if Hayden is right for 74. I felt like Finesilver was a perfect 74. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think we learned that at the U.S. Open in the preseason that Hayden can hang with anybody at that weight. He's strength and power is never going to be an issue with him, and getting underneath him, good luck. And having 6 years of college wrestling, it's a good combination. The biggest thing for me is how excited and happy he is when he's training right now. And that's all he is. He's focused on getting better at wrestling and not so much of just grinding and wearing his body down, cutting weight. So we've learned a lot as a program, as a staff, as the weight and nutrition part of that. And I think we're going to see a lot of good miles out of our guys down the road because we're doing a lot of things right when it comes to weight management. So that was a good match. Those guys, you could see how physical they were out there wrestling. I thought our offense opened up really well. And, Hayden made those mid-match. That's what I like about him. He's ahead of his years, and it's kind of out there. As we tell our guys a lot of times, you got to coach yourself in the middle of a match. There's only so much, we can do before and in the corner. And these guys make those adjustments in the match. I think you saw that with him and looked really good. It's a good, solid win against a kid that's probably going to compete to be an All-American this year. And I thought we controlled a lot of that match.
Hayden told me he couldn't tape this interview right after practice because he was going to get a lunch.
Yes.
So I'm curious where he went and what he had.
That's a good question.
It's a Tuesday, so I don't know.
Yeah. That's good. Maybe we'll see him out somewhere getting food.
Okay.
I think him and Coach Hall are getting lunch together, too.
Yeah.
So.
He didn't offer to bring me back anything.
That's all right.
So he takes
I imagine if Hall's involved, they're eating healthy. They're not going to be going to get a burger anywhere.
All right, Pat. NC State Wrestling is returning to Reynolds Coliseum this weekend, host Virginia. I promise this duel will happen.
How do you know?
Because I tweeted it out this morning. So, okay. So we joked about it, but honestly, you guys had a little bit of a crowd at Duke, obviously. But other than that, Campbell, no fans. Princeton, no fans. Florida did have fans, but not,
it wasn't, it was on the road pretty far, so it was different.
Have you had to talk to your guys about just being in a normal college wrestling environment for this duel?
Well, a lot of it is when there's no fans, you really do have to get your mentality right, because it's just so laid back and it's different. It's really weird. And then when you throw the fans in there, it brings so much good energy, regardless if we're home or on the road. There's that excitement. So yeah, and especially Reynolds, the more we travel and the places and competitions we're at, Reynolds becomes more and more of one of the best college wrestling venues in the country. And as long as we pack that in, I'll rival that. I know some arenas might be bigger, but this, with the way that it's set up, the metal roof and just the whole layout is an awesome atmosphere for college wrestling. So I challenge anybody who's never been to a college match. This is a place to come and see it. And I promise you won't be disappointed in the entertainment that goes on in there.
Now, I do like a packed Reynolds, but I will say when there's no crowd or it's empty, some of the comments from your guys on the bench kind of crack me up sometimes.
That's just
they get into it.
They're into it. I mean, coming to a practice, you should have heard what they were saying to each other today. So
practice was a little vicious.
It doesn't change. If you think that it's because we're wrestling on another team, that's not true. They do it to our own guys, so it's good.
Virginia's coming down, very much improved. They went to Criteria with North Carolina last week. 7 ranked starters amongst their 10. So Virginia's just a program. Very good challenge for you guys.
Absolutely. Every year, you're going to get a good, tough, hard-nosed match from Virginia. They have a really good lineup and have been making good strides over the years. Coach Garland been there for a long time now and has got a great tradition going. So it's one we know we got to be ready and got to show up and wrestle as good as we can, because it's one that there's going to be a lot of good, tight matches, I'm sure, and we're ready for that challenge.
So say, looking at a couple weights, I know I always start at 125, so I'm just going to skip around today.
All right, let's go.
I'm feeling crazy.
Pick your numbers.
197.
There you go. That's the one.
I think everybody's looking for that. Trumbull and number 13, J. Aiello.
Yep.
Aiello made a world team this year.
We're going to talk about rankings a little bit, because I know I'm big on those. I think he's a little underranked.
I would very much agree. Jake Aiello is very underranked.
Yeah.
World team member. These two didn't meet last year. Renan got the start.
Yep.
Isaac Trumbull, he's won 2 close ones in a row here in duels. Fans, they kind of want to see more action, but I tell you what, J. Aiello, he's going to be hard to score on.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a great matchup. Just 2 kind of different body types too.
Definitely. That's Isaac. He can win close matches, so that's a positive there. We talked about it as a team. We want to put up as many points as we can. We'd rather have the 10 to 15 type match than a 1-0. But at the end of the day, we got to get our hand raised, and Isaac knows how to do that. And this is going to be a match where I think, he's going to see a lot of leg attacks, which could work to our advantage. And both guys are really good on top, so that could be a factor in this match. But yeah, we're going to continue to see. I saw a lot of good action out of Issac today in practice, continuing to work on his offense. You know his defense is rock solid, and we'll continue to develop that offense. And, you know, he's dangerous from any position. So it's going to be a good match.
All right, 65. I think this is a great one. You got Bullard. I think Bullard is still accumulating riding time wherever he's at right now. I mean, the guy's just crushed it the last couple of duels. Justin McCoy coming up from 157. He really gave Hayden fits last year.
Yeah.
He's up to 11-0 on the year. Ranked, because I know you love that. He's ranked 17th right now. But these two haven't faced each other. Bullard, he's gotten back in the lineup a lot of matches the last couple of weeks. What have you seen from Bullard since the scuffle?
Just wrestling more intense and focused. You know, sometimes you get out there and if we're not in that zone, you know, we get a little sloppy. And when he's intense and focused, you get really good, crisp wrestling from Bullard. And, you know, he's obviously got to wrestle his style. And I think this is going to be a match where it could be like that because, you know, both these guys can scramble pretty well, I think. So there's going to be that'll be a good match. It'll be different, unique, unorthodox style wrestling. So that should be fun to watch these guys put it on the line.
I think 33 is a great matchup. Brian Courtney from UVA got a great win. I think he got 2 wins over UNC last weekend, but he beat Hernandez, who was in the top 10.
Yep.
You have a couple options there, but Courtney's wrestling really good right now. Your 133s, you want to see them tested in an ACC matchup like this.
Yeah, this is going to be one. You know, the kid wrestles. I mean, he wrestled Tariq pretty tough the last couple times they went at it. So, you know, you're going to get a really good scrambler, and whoever we throw at a 33 is going to be ready for that. And I think it's one of the more highlighted matches out there, and we got to be ready because I think it's going to be nonstop 7 minutes of wrestling. So it should be fun, and when it's all said and done, we'll know exactly what we need to do at 33.
It's funny you mentioned 33 and Tariq. I'm actually working ahead. I found a picture of all your super seniors as freshmen.
Perfect.
And I found a picture of Tariq at 133.
I'm looking at him right here.
Yeah, but he looks a little, that's the NCAAs.
Yeah.
I got Wolfpac Duels 133 Tariq.
Nice.
He looks like he might be at 125 there. So.
He could be. He's grown a lot.
Stay tuned. We're going to honor the super seniors as it comes down. But Pat, great catching up with you. A lot of stuff went down these last 2 weeks. I don't think I've texted or called you more. Well, I didn't call you. You kept calling me.
I kept calling you. We had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we did.
There was a lot going on.
I like how you vent sometimes.
Yeah, well, you know, you're my springboard here. So, no, it's good. You know, that was long week. We got through it and got a plan in place, and we're back on schedule with a lot of good things and exciting time to come out and support NC State wrestling.
ACC wrestling going down the next 3 Fridays, and then obviously ending with Virginia Tech. But it starts this weekend, Reynolds Coliseum, Friday night, NC State, UVA. Let's pack Reynolds. Pat, one last time, tell us fans to come and support your guys.
Friday night, it's Military Appreciation Night, so we'll have a nice little surprise for some people with and maybe we'll do something for a raffle to get some people to show up. What do you say, Brian?
I actually have a giveaway this week.
I got a giveaway too. How about that? We got 2 giveaways.
Now, I've been trying to give away stuff by people guessing
I got
the
something
score.
very unique to give away.
Okay. But you also told me that you're getting it replaced.
No, I got something different.
Okay, this is something different. All right. So stay tuned on Twitter. Who are we? Pack Wrestle fans. We're going to be giving away some stuff. I know I've been hard on the fans. They have been incorrect score guessing recently. So we'll see if we can give away some stuff this week.
What are you going to come up with?
An old giveaway we used to have. I'm looking at one up there.
I know where those are at
you
too.
Gave it to
but
me.
I have something very special, especially if you're into the backing of the military, which we are here at NC State. So
Military Appreciation Day this Friday night, Virginia. We're also going to be honoring Hayden before the duel.
Yep.
So guys, come in the arena about 15 minutes early.
Can we talk about that real quick? The 100 wins.
Yeah.
That's not easy to do. You know that, right? If you go, and I know you're a stat guy.
I know he's the 6th all time, and he's the first since 2018.
Yeah, but you also, the landscape college wrestling's changed drastically, and the match count. If you go back to when Gwiz was here, getting 47 matches.
Well, first of all, okay,
it's changed a lot. So people need to know, getting 100 wins in the way that he's done it is not an easy task, and just a reflection of who he is as an athlete and what he's done for NC State wrestling. I think that is priceless.
Gwiz might have got 40 wins that one year, but
it was well over 40.
He didn't wrestle 7 minutes every match.
That's not true. Gwiz wasn't a pinner.
That's true.
He was a tech faller.
Okay. But anyway, Hayden, congratulations. I'm sure I'm going to be telling you in that interview, so stay tuned, Wolfpac fans, for our featured interview with Hayden Hidlay. Hey, Wolfpac Wrestling fans. Before we get to that featured interview, let us get you up to date on how to follow us on social media. Give us a follow on Twitter and get all of the latest NC State wrestling news. We had the most followers in the ACC and have ranked in the top 10 nationally in interactions each of the last 5 seasons. On Twitter, find us at Pac Wrestle. Be sure to head over to our YouTube page for a great behind-the-scenes look at the program, in addition to highlights from all of our matches if you're unable to watch them live. We would love to get over 1,000 subscribers so we can monetize our channel and need your help by hitting that subscribe button to get us closer to our goal. On YouTube, we are also at Pac Wrestle. Our Instagram stories are unmatched on match days from Reynolds Coliseum, as we take you all over the arena for a look in on the great Wolfpac Wrestling action. On Instagram, follow us at Wolfpac Wrestling. And it goes without saying, the top podcast that covers NC State wrestling is this very podcast, the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Make sure you're subscribing so each and every new episode will automatically download for you. We are available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Thank you for listening to the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast and for your continued support of NC State Wolfpac Wrestling. Now joining us on the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast, 174-pounder, don't know what year to call him, Hayden Hidlay. Hayden, on the podcast yet again.
What's up, Brian? How we doing?
So I was just going to say, don't know what to call you. When you tell people or you have to introduce yourself to a person, do you put a year ahead of your name?
No, I usually just say old.
Okay.
I'm old.
Old Hayden Hidlay.
They still let me hang around the team.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's funny. We're in Pat's office doing this, and I'm sitting in Pat's chair. So technically, I'm filling in for Pat on the podcast today.
Pat did interview on his own podcast for once, but you're talking about sitting in his chair. Is that something you get used to? Not this year, but down the road a little bit?
I think I need about 10, 15 years of real experience under my belt since I've just been putting off adult life for quite some time now. But yeah, that would be a dream come true for sure. And I've learned a whole lot from him. And I'm not sure if I'm ready to deal with the responsibilities that he has in this chair just quite yet, but maybe down the road.
Yeah, you get him on good days, bad days, cranky days. I told Pat you couldn't do it right after practice. You went out to lunch. Coach Hall. Mm-hmm. Coach Hall said Pat said Coach Hall would take you somewhere healthy. Where was lunch today?
So we went to Village Deli in Cameron Village. It's just a pretty cool little spot there. You can get some sandwiches or whatever. I got a panini. It was pretty solid. So I think it's like a go-to for when you just need to have a lunch. And it was good to kind of talk about the season so far with him and, you know, what is going to come in the next few weeks. But it's good to just kind of have a sit back and have a meeting with a coach and kind of go through some things.
I was going to say, this is Tuesday, Duel on Friday. Is it different to eat a lunch during the week for you?
You know what? I have talked a lot about that with people, and they're just like, you know, what's different about going up a couple weight classes? Like, there's a whole different side of preparation that I'm just completely missing out on, like that I have in the past few 4 years. And it was always just, there was so much planning and so much like time that I would devote to, all right, I'm done with practice, but now I've got at least 45 minutes an hour where I just got to do, you know, cut my weight off. And it's like, now I don't have to do that. It's almost like, I feel like I'm cheating the system where it's like, what do I do now with my time where I'm just like either working with some of the guys on just like technique. And it's like, but that doesn't like require any energy. It's more just like, wow, it's almost like I'm getting used to it now. But like the first few times I weighed in, I was like, am I like cheating? Because I didn't have to do anything like this all week. And, you know, it's really good that I'm getting my conditioning from actual conditioning stuff and not from running all the time. But it's definitely a new thing for me to experience, but I certainly enjoy it quite a bit.
So say a little bit different. Are you worried about trying to gain weight and not lose so much weight in a practice? Or what's the balance like in that regard?
Yeah, there's definitely a balance you have to figure out, because I got like to a really good spot at the beginning of the season where I was weighing like 181, 82. And that's a healthy cut to get down. Like I didn't want to just like weigh 174 and be like, screw it, here I am. I can just show up. Like, that's not how things work in college. Like, you do have to be above the weight class and be smart about it. And I did a really good job. And then it does get a little bit harder as you go throughout the year because, you're practicing, you're lifting, but you're not lifting to gain weight. You're more, lifting to focusing on your strength and like maintaining it. There's not any times during the week where you're lifting, you're like, all right, we're just going to go all out here and, fry our bodies because we can't. Like, you have to perform. And so there's an element that I've had to learn throughout this season of, okay, I need to make sure that I'm, eating enough so I can maintain being around 180. That's where I kind of like to be, that sweet spot of like, if I'm coming in before practice where I'm like lighter than that, then I have to, maybe shift my diet a little bit, or maybe I'm just working hard, like working too much. And that's like a point now being in my 6th year where I can have those conversations, like, all right, I don't need to necessarily go this long today. But the biggest thing is just like I can stay hydrated during practice. I don't have to worry about that. And so like there's plenty of times where I'll stop practice and be like, all right, actually, no, I need to go refill my water bottle, because if I don't, then I'm just going to sweat too much out. And, it's a new thing. Just because I moved up 2 weight classes doesn't mean things are going to be easy. It's a different kind of hard, but it's a challenge that I'm more willing to embrace at this point in my life, I think.
It is incredible how sweaty and how much weight you can lose at a practice.
Yeah, if I wasn't refilling my liquids at all times, I would probably, now that I'm bigger, I'd be losing 8 to 10 pounds of practice. And you get a guy like Trent who's even more than that. So it's an important thing to learn about, and making sure now where I am, I don't want to get too light. There's no reason for me to be touching down during the week, and I just have to make sure that I'm being cognizant of that and checking my weight. And although I don't have to do the dreaded weight checks anymore, where all right, it used to be you'd walk in and be like, all right, well, where's Hayden? And I'd be 10 to 12 over, and I always had a good system there, but I don't have to do those weight checks anymore, which is nice.
All right, you don't have your tooth in today, so. Heavy rumors, and there's a lot of proof about it. You have a very sweet tooth now. Now, I'll give you the facts. Pat has said on the podcast, and he has tweeted out about you eating donuts. There is video of you sitting with a 6-pack of donuts, eating them all. When I asked you guys to come help me pass out donuts, you were the first one to say, I will do the donuts. Do you have a sweet tooth now?
I think I've always had a sweet tooth, but I don't have to be guilty about it anymore. And I would always try to reward myself. When I was cutting weight, I would be a Sunday, you're far away enough from competition where you can have some calories that aren't good. But back then I would just eat a donut or 2, and then I'd feel bad about it for a few days. And now it's I don't care. This isn't me eating 3 donuts. I'm not sure about the half a dozen. That doesn't happen.
I just saw the video and you had the whole box.
Well, that's just the way that it was positioned. I'm not going to go into details about me counting calories, because I don't do that anymore. But, I did say at one point, if it's a Sunday and I'm not have a big training day or a competition and I'm not eating donuts, then check my pulse, because that's I don't know, it just puts me in a good mood. If I wake up Sunday morning and get some donuts and watch football or do whatever I'm doing, I think that's a pretty good start to the day and a good start to the week. And it's not like I'm eating donuts every day. I have a really good diet throughout the week. But
Okay.
I stopped worrying a long time ago what a donut would do for my training, because Pat does have some funny things that he'll say, if you're eating 2 donuts, you're missing out on 10 days of training. And it's I can just laugh at that now, where it's not a big deal.
So I told you I didn't have anything written down, so we're just going to jump around. One I wanted to ask you about, because I texted him earlier. Hayden Hidlay 157 versus Ed Scott 157.
I'm in trouble. It's a funny thing, because I look back at the way I used to wrestle my freshman year, where it was just I don't know, it's kind of like a bat out of hell coming just out. And it's that's what Ed literally wrestles like. And he does such a great job of just throwing caution to the wind and be whatever, if I get scored on the first period, it's not that big of a deal, because his pace is so punishing. And as you grow older, it like you become a better wrestler and you don't need to wrestle like that. But he's at a point now where his biggest asset is the fact that he can do a lot and he can do it for a long time. And so like I look back, like if I was like I don't know, say last year my 57 I have to wrestle Ed, like I'd be like, oh great, this guy. This like that's what people think is like wow, I gotta wrestle this guy because he is just like an animal that becomes uncaged. And he is just a great energy starter for our team. Like if it was up to me, I would start every match at 157 so we could get him out there. And especially if it's against a guy that's cutting weight, he just devours them. And so he's the energy guy for our team. And because then we get Trent, who comes out and wrestles very similar kind of style. It's such a cool thing to see his progression from last year to this year. And all I can say is if I had to wrestle him at 57, like I'd have to really hunker down and be like, all right, this guy.
He's on a mission this year for points. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, he's a very inspiring person to watch, especially when you're after him in the lineup and you get to see his energy. And he's the kind of guy that when Reynolds gets a hold of him, like when people see him in a home match, they're like, wow, this is our guy. You know, he's the future, and he's the foundation for one of the key things that we need to do as a team.
Talk about watching. So here's one I just thought of. You're at 74, Trent's at 84. Trent's a little bit intense. He's just not going to sit by and watch a match quietly. Have you guys had to talk about him watching your matches?
You know, we haven't really talked a lot about that, to be honest with you, because I think that he is just somebody that gets so focused in on his craft, and I don't think he worries too much about me at this point. I've done everything I can do to, tell him that whatever happens with me is all right. You're like, he is the way he's able to stay focused and his energy where he gets it from. He doesn't have to rely on me to do that. And so obviously like I haven't lost yet and he hasn't had to do that. So like, I don't think it'd be a huge issue because of the way that he's trained and the way that he's prepared. You know, we're very different kind of people. And I think if it was the other way around, I would be more stressed out watching him just because I know how much he's prepared and how I feel like he should win every match. And like just watching that would be a little bit stressful for me, but he's a different breed. You know, he is born to win. And I don't think whatever I do, I don't really think it makes a huge difference on him. And I know the only thing I can really do is help him. I think if I go out and I get good momentum for the team, then that can do only positives for him.
I think a lot of our fans want the Virginia Tech duel to start at 84 and at 74.
I can't imagine they would agree to that. And but
for the fans,
I mean, if you want to do it for the fans, let's do it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it would make a difference to him either way around. But it is kind of cool to have us back to back because there is like a big momentum shift when you got a guy, experienced guy like Tariq, and then you have Ed, and then we just get into our older guys, and then you have Trent that really revamps the kind of energy of it all because, either way you look at it, we're all wrestling different styles at this point. A guy like Tariq can't wrestle the same style as a guy like Ed, and I can't wrestle the same style as Trent. And so there are a little bit of some ebb and flows of the way our lineup works, but we all bring something very different to the table. And I think that's one thing that I've learned about this year is like, I don't have to worry about being the energy guy. I don't have to worry about being the guy that's just like that cool and like does great stuff. Like I can just be me, and because there's plenty of guys that really kind of bring the team up in other regards that I can't.
Does anything change for you once you get off the mat? Your brother's going out there. You still need to cool down a little bit and just come down from your match.
Yeah, I mean, for the first period of Trent's match, I'm usually too tired to do much. Like no matter who it is, like if you're in going out for a tech fall or you're in a close match, you're going to be tired. And so I usually just try to hop on a bike and just slowly recover and then watch him. But he's been getting off to such hot starts that whenever I look around, he's up he's up 4-1 or he already pinned the guy in that case for Duke. And so it's a little bit different for me. Like in the past, I've been able to recover, and then I would just stress out watching him. It is kind of like an added benefit where I'm too tired to really stress out over watching his matches. But yeah, that's kind of all it is I'll get off the mat, try to recover, and then watch him.
Did the parents like back-to-back, or did they like a 2 weight class gap?
I haven't really heard them say much about it. I mean, the good thing for them is it knocks it out in 2 matches. Like, they're not watching me and then waiting to watching Trent. Like, they can watch us back to back. So that's a kind of cool thing. But the one drawback is that if something happens in one match, like if there's a real big high, say I win and then they got to get back and start all over again, that can be a tough thing for them. But I mean, they're used to it. Like I said, they're thoroughbreds when it comes to watching wrestling, being around wrestling, and watching us. Like, there's nobody that's seen us wrestle more matches than them. So I think they're used to it at this point.
Look forward. Your dad said he's going to get on Instagram and put some stories up about wrestling now.
He's been on Instagram a lot. He'll post like whatever football teams are playing, like the NFL teams. He'll post like somebody from the 70s or 80s, and then he'll have music in the background. He like really gets a huge kick out of it, and we do too. So, I mean, all the fans out there, if you want to like see some like vintage football players, and like all week he'll have like some like classic guys from the Bengals and classic guys from the Rams that he'll be putting on Instagram.
Keeps him busy.
Yep.
Another thing. So people were, they were asking about size for 174 for you, going up 2 weight classes. I think Duke was a great example. Fine Silver, he's probably about a foot taller than you. Mm-hmm. How did you feel like, was that a good example of you just handling a bigger guy and having to deal with different strategies and all that?
Yeah, and I think I've seen a few guys like that this year. When I was back at like the collegiate duels, I wrestled a really tall guy from Missouri, and like there was a couple mistakes I made just dealing with that sort of person, and I think I've really cleaned up a lot of what I was doing. And I wrestled Nelson Brands from Iowa, who used to be an 84-pounder. So like that's probably going to be one of the bigger guys I'll have to wrestle, and I felt like it was a good measuring stick for me on what I need to get better at. And now, I'm getting into the grind of the season, and wrestling a guy like Fine Silver is a big thing because, one, he's really big and he's really tall. And I think a lot of it too comes down to I'm not going to be a guy against those kind of people that are going to shoot 20 times a match. Like I don't have any goals of doing that. Like against a guy like that, I'll have to pick and choose, the spots when I want to attack. And, maybe me 4 years ago could have really tried to, shoot 20 shots a match, but it's just like where I am now, I don't need to do that. And I'm getting better on top. I'm mostly getting riding time points against the guys that I'm wrestling. And so I can be a little bit more tactical. I can be more strategic when I'm taking shots because I know that my defense is good enough to hold up against a guy like that. And like there was times in the match against Fine Silver, I was just like, it's like, man, I kind of just wish this guy would shoot because I know my defense is good enough where I'm going to score from it. But that's one thing you learn to face, like against a guy that has way more length than you, is really good defensively, is really good in scrambles. There's going to be a couple windows where you're going to really have to go all out for a shot, and that's what I did. I went all out probably 4 times and scored twice on him, and that's good enough. Against a guy that's really good, a guy that's going to be in contention for All-American, like that's good enough. And I know I think I talked about earlier, like sometimes I feel like in the past I've had to do a lot. Like I've had to do a lot for the team. And like that's the kind of thing now where I realize like I don't need to go out and try to get bonus on a guy like that or make more mistakes. I'm obviously keeping very active and everything's very intentional. Like everything I was doing in that match was to try to get him a little bit tired and try to get him out of position, but it might not look like that. My style has to change a little bit. I'm still very active at my core and want to be offensive, but my defense has gotten a lot better as I've gotten up in weight, and it's almost like I'm picking some really selective but open opportunities to score, and just kind of praying that those guys shoot on me because I know I'm good enough to score.
Anything good, anything bad surprise you about 174?
My conditioning held up, and I was somewhat worried about that, just like because you're gaining weight, you don't know quite what it's like. But my conditioning's held up really well, and I just think one of the differences is like you get more sweaty during a match. You're just 2 bigger bodies. It's a little bit harder to get turns. I've stayed really consistent with trying to get them. And I've done a great job so far this year. But it's the only thing I've really noticed is I'm not the guy anymore that's just going to overpower every single person out there. Like, I still have plenty of power, and my strength is still, I would put myself at, the top 5% of all 174 pounders. But like back at 57, like I knew my strength was way better than everybody else, where now, like, I don't have to rely on that. And it's almost made me better because I've had to focus more on ways that I can score and not just plowing through people and just trying to physically break them. And it's like, now I'm seeing it through a different lens of, where can I get my attacks? Where can I use my strength to get to an attack, but I don't have to rely on it so much? And, it's been a journey for sure. Like, I felt like at the start of the summer, wrestling guys like Trent, I was like, oh, there's still some doubts about this. Like, but then, you get into your groove and, you actually, wrestle the matches at the weight the first time. And, wrestling is wrestling to some extent. I've built up a knowledge of wrestling. I've built up a great, just like, foundation of hard work that's got me to this point. And so why not trust that? That's the one biggest thing I've noticed about 174 is I can trust myself more than I did at 157.
I'm going to put your coach's cap on for a quick second. Obviously, you're working with Trent a lot in the room, but I also see you working with a lot of the true freshmen. These guys are redshirting. And Pat always says, Trent says, you said, these guys are getting beat up because you're going against 6-year guys. Yeah. I mean, it's just natural. Tell us about maybe a guy that you think is an up-and-comer, or just the mentality that you have to have as a redshirt to go against a person like you and Trent and just probably get scored on more than you're scoring.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. For the first-year guys, it's tough sometimes. Like, you go into the room and you wrestle guys like me and Trent who we are giving everything we have because we know we have to if we want to prepare right. And just like, there's a point where what they have, like, their skills just aren't quite up to ours yet. And that's a hard thing for somebody that was really successful in high school to realize. But the big thing for them is making sure that their morale doesn't get low because of that. Like, they're still really good. It's just, you have to take a step back and realize that, we're very experienced guys and we have to wrestle hard. Like, we have to, dominate you at times in practice for us to be better, and hoping in return that makes you better. You can go one of two ways with it. You can get beat up and put your head down, which just the coaches don't allow in the room. And so, but you can get beat up and keep coming back. And then, a year down the road, you start to turn into that kind of guy in the room. And the way that it's worked out with our team this year is, like, we've got first-year guys like Brock Del Signor and Joey Milano, who are in the room and might get beat up, but then, like, they're having some pretty good results in the open circuit. And so that our biggest thing as, like, a leader is just to make sure, like, yeah, we're going to beat you up today, but, like, I don't think any less of you because of it. Like, we were in the position where we need to be those guys to do that. And like, luckily, like, there's other guys in the room that they can wrestle with where it's more like a fair, like, challenge in the room. But, like, they do a good job of understanding that they know their role if they need to challenge us to the most that they can. And I think they take pride in that. And it's been a cool thing for me just because I get to wrestle with completely different guys this year. Like, there's, like, in the past, like, I've gone up and would wrestle, like, at 74 guy, maybe. That would be, like, the kind of the highest that I would go. And I wouldn't really wrestle with anybody under 57 either because, like, I was always a huge 57 and it just didn't feel right for me to do that. But now that I'm, like, a decent size 74, I can wrestle 65 guys. I can wrestle 84 and 97. And so, like, I've been wrestling a completely different batch of people. And, the new thing that they've been doing this year is, like, bring in a fresh, like, 57 guy on me because, like, it helps me pick up my foot speed. And, like, guys like Derek Fields, who is a younger guy, and like, even Ed, like, that's, like, been one thing that I've been able to do is, like, I'll wrestle a few goes, get myself really tired, then they'll throw in a fresh, real light guy on me. And so that changes the way that I have to wrestle. But, with that, I've got this huge, just broad range of training partners that I can utilize, and that's been great for me and hopefully great for them too.
your recruiting class, you, Reenan, Tariq, and the Bullards ranked number 1. Seems like we've had a class in the top 5, top 10, but next year's class should be number 2. Did you think when you committed, like your class was going to kind of start this? And how proud are you to see the trajectory of NC State wrestling to get these kids here now?
Yeah, there's a whole lot that goes into it. There's a lot of planning. And like whenever I first got here, I just looked at the guys that were on the team and they just were so tough because like they did have some good like recruits come in, but a lot of those guys were just people that built up their own resume and people that came from the ground up and just they worked to go to the top. And they, like the statistics say, like if you're bringing in a lot of blue chip recruits, you're probably going to have a good team. They were the exception to that. And you know, those were guys that maybe didn't win a state title in high school, but were ACC champions, or you know, weren't ranked at the final of their high school career, and then they become these mainstay guys in college. And so the way that I looked at them was, it would be a disservice to me if they're bringing all these new really good guys, and I couldn't accomplish what they accomplished. And it's like that. I take a lot of pride in that because those guys built up the program. The guys that came before me built up this program, and now I have to be the kind of next generation of guys that's bringing in maybe better recruits out of high school, but I still have to make sure that the culture stays the same. And so that was always a big thing for me, is even though we're bringing in better recruits now, need to make sure that the culture, you know, holds up to the values that the guys before me created. And so now that we're bringing in these great classes, you know, we have the opportunity to even step up from what we've done in the past. And I think this next group of guys will be a huge, you know, huge improvement to this program, because they're going to have guys like Trent to look up to. And even though some of these older guys will be in a different a position in their lives, like guys like me, Tariq, and Reenan and Thomas, we, you know, won't be guys on the team. Like, who knows what we're going to do after this season, but you know, the guys that are coming in have guys like Trent, Camacho, and Trumbull to look up to, and we have all the faith in the world that they're going to keep what we've built and keep the culture, because you know, coaches are still going to be here, and it's just a new wave of guys, and it's finally coming to that time. You know, after all this time, it's like it could have happened last year, but I'm back, and then we have this pretty elite group of older 6th-year seniors, and it's just finally time for us to move on.
I was gonna say, so you said time to move on. North Carolina Senior Day. You're gonna go through Senior Day this year?
I will go through Senior Day this year. I made the decision that Senior Day will happen. There's no chance of me returning for another year, even though it would be great to some people. I don't think that we're going to be able to skirt around any rules this time.
Nah.
And but Senior Day against UNC, I will be honored there. And
a lot of schools are saying, how the hell is Hayden Hidlay still on this wrestling team? But we talked about Pat. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. 100 career wins. Congratulations.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
It is a lot different because, and Pat actually brought this up, when Gwiz was wrestling, he would get like 45 matches a year. You obviously, your total has probably gone down as you've been here, but 100 wins, 6th all time, huge accomplishment. I know you don't look at it now, but I'm sure you're going to look back and go, wow, that really is something that I set out to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like pretty rare to do that in college. And I know, you know, with me being in my 5th year of representing NC State, like it is probably going to be more common across the country for guys to reach 100 wins. But like the way that I look at it is, I didn't have a full season my junior year because I missed the NCAA championship. That would have been five wins. And then my senior year was like, I mean, it was a very just completely different season. And so like if I would have had 4 normal years, I would have still got 100 wins. And so it's pretty cool to like, you know, see that like I'm the 6th person who's done this in this program. And that's pretty impressive to do. And like, no matter how far I go in this sport, I think I can always ground myself to being like, wow, like I am in the top 1% of the top 1% of people. And that's always been kind of crazy for me to think about, because you get so thrown into this sport and you get so involved in it, and it's hard it's hard some days to be like, wow, you're still really good at this. And, whenever you get accomplishments like that, it kind of hits you like, wow, like I did this. And like, it even gets it gets harder as you get better in this sport, because you look at some of the mistakes you make and like, man, I wrestled a terrible match there. I did something really stupid. It's hard. It's hard to realize that you are really good. And I try to remind myself of that at times, because I think it keeps me grounded of like, you're in the top 1% of the top 1% of people, and be grateful for that and be thankful. And that's one thing I've done a lot better job of this year than in years past. In years past, I've probably been more negative towards what I've been doing and looking at the things that I haven't accomplished, where now it's like I'm looking at these things that I've accomplished and realize it's pretty great, pretty lucky.
Get you out here on this. You said you're very grounded. I know you're pretty even keeled, but that last weekend for you, Carolina here, Virginia Tech here, Lout, top 10, Mekhi Lewis, everybody knows about him. 2 huge matches for you to end your career at home in front of a packed crowd. Would you get emotional, or how are you going to kind of prepare for that weekend?
I think I'm more of a person who, goes through things and then sits back and realizes what's happened. So like that weekend, I don't want to think about like it being the end of something, because there's still a lot of time in the season left and still a lot of things to be done. But I mean, like, yeah, at the same time, it's gonna be pretty rough to walk away from Reynolds because of all the memories that I've made there with my teammates. And all I can hope for is that, everyone that supported me over the couple of years is going to be able to be there. And that's all I can ask for. I've really done a lot of, work, just like trying to mentally like stabilize myself over the last year. And you don't do well in this sport unless you can be, happy for yourself. And so like, that's the biggest thing about this year is no matter how hard it is, or no matter, the mistakes that are made, realize that I'm in a privileged situation that I can come back and wrestle for this team. Like that's all that it's about. There's so many little things and little arguments that happen along the way. Like what happened with Virginia Tech, like not being able to come on that Friday night to Reynolds. Like, yeah, you can stay angry about it or be bitter about it, but I'm playing with house money at this point, and I've had a really great career. I haven't lost the ambition that I always had. Like I haven't lost the standards that I've set for myself, but I've been able to take a step back and realize that, little mistakes I make along the way, or, arguments that happen, whenever you're with the team, like it's just that's what comes with being in the position that I'm in. And I've just had an incredible season so far of just, really enjoying every step of the process. Like even if we have bad travel, we have the team cancel. Like,
well, first of all, bad travel. We have long travel.
Yeah, like that whole New York trip or the New Jersey trip. Like
it took over 12 hours to get home from New Jersey.
Yeah, and that whole time, everybody's upset, and we're sitting on a plane because they loaded too much gasoline in it or whatever.
Over 1,000 pounds extra of gasoline.
Yep. And so like, I guess going into that story, we're sitting on the plane, they come over the announcement and they're 1,000 pounds overweight because they put too much gasoline in the plane. So we have to sit there on the runway and just pretty much siphon off gas. And, what I imagine that whole time is like there was a couple crew members who was out there like with like a hose and like breathing in and spitting it out, but that's definitely not what happened. But like I just kept looking over at Trent and we were joking around about it. It's like, how worse can this possibly get? And so we just thought it was funny because like I looked around and like I don't know how many more trips I'm gonna be able to have with these guys, and no matter what happens, it just brush it off and really enjoy the good times that you get with these guys. And so it's like, yeah, that last weekend of UNC Virginia Tech, it's 2 great teams. I'm going to have 2 great opponents. Why not soak in how fun that can be? It's a huge challenge, but that's what I came back for, is to enjoy something like that, not worry about, this is the last time I'm going to wrestle. Like the reason why I came back is to enjoy stuff like that, not worry about how much time I have left.
Talk about spending time with your teammates. I don't know if you know this yet. We're busting up the pit. The blue collar travel tour will continue, by riding 9-10 hours up to Pitt.
It's
going to be a lot of team bonding.
I think they did it for us, Brian. They wanted us to keep extending our relationship.
You say us, but it ain't me because I'm very vocal about not wanting to take a bus ride that long.
There's going to be board games out.
Yes, there are.
We'll get to know each other more, and I'll get to spend more time with my teammates, even though
we do joke, but that really is a thing. I mean, board games, the conversations, it really is kind of fun to be stuck on a bus that long with such a diverse group of guys too. I mean,
and I love sitting back and watching somebody like Trent, who, like a guy like Ryan Jack, we treat him like he's our little cousin on the team. Like he's just always around. He's a little kid that's always around, and like, I'm old enough now where I can sit back and watch how funny it is, where like a guy like Trent just wants to grab him by the back of the neck at like all times. And so I thoroughly enjoy all of that because it's all out of love too. Like we know that like a guy like Ryan is like our guy that we have to like mentor. And like he is still like in that, he's just like the little kid on the team phase. And it's really cool to see. And it's definitely something that makes the road trips fun.
It is funny. I've noticed through the years, you older guys actually sitting back and watching just the interactions and all this. And it's funny until everybody wants to get some rest and go to sleep. And then it's not. But Hayden, thanks very much for coming on the podcast. Obviously, fans, 3 more chances to watch Hayden Hidlay inside Reynolds Coliseum starting this Friday against UVA. Hayden, you've had some battles with UVA over the years. You're not going to be wrestling the same guy you've wrestled, but UVA, very tough team, 7 ranked guys, great opportunity for NC State this weekend.
Yeah, they're a sneaky good team. I think they had some like injury or like COVID issues like so far in this season that now that they have their full lineup together, I think they'll surprise people. They're a pretty solid team. They went to criteria with UNC last week. It's a team that will, it's a good progression that we have, I think, in the ACC schedule. Like, even though some of us had tough individual matches last week, like it'll incrementally get tougher as the weeks go on. And so they're the next step where we get a team that's more balanced than a team like Duke is, that has good individuals, but as a team across the board, we'll have to be more prepared.
Hayden, thanks for joining us. I want to thank everybody for listening today. This is your Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast covering all things NC State wrestling. Until next time, Wolfpac wrestling fans, go Pack.
The Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast is produced by the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, go to MatTalkOnline.com.